My name is Gigi Taylor. I work at Indeed in Austin, Texas. My title is Qualitative UX Researcher, but I have been trained as a cultural anthropologist, applied cultural anthropology. So that's what I do at Indeed. I look at the cultural practices of hiring in organizations, and I take those findings and take those back to the people who can make a better user experience for our customers. I have a PhD in advertising from UT Austin and a master's in applied anthropology from University of North Texas. Well, it's been a while since I made that first transition from my PhD to my first job. And I think it was the absolute most difficult one. So that is what I'm going to talk about, because I think a lot of folks that are listening to this are going to be making that very, very first transition. So as someone who has a PhD, with the title PhD, everyone assumes that you know your skills as a researcher. You know how to write a research question, design a study, conduct the study, analyze it, identify the findings and present that. What people really want to know in the applied world is how you can implement that, how you can share your story, how your research can make a difference. They want to know essentially your soft skills. So that is the piece that you have to sell. That is the piece that you have to kind of sell in the interview, that you can do that. So when I first made that transition, I did several things. One, I had an internship where I had experience of doing exactly that. And I also made friends. So when I was applying, I could refer to the people that I used to work with. And because I had that internship, I had stories to tell, not just about the method of my research or the findings of the research, but I had a story to tell about the impact of my research. And that is what really employers want to know about, is how did your research make a change? And if I were to hire you, how would your research make my work and my organization better? So I highly encourage internships. And if you don't have that, then doing pro bono work, so that you get that experience and you have stories to tell, that instead of saying, oh, I'm very creative, or I'm really good teamwork, I'm really good, can do work with others, or I'm really good leader, I'm a really good collaborator. You just don't say that. You tell the story that supports these attributes, these soft skills. So when you talk to people about their career path, everyone says that their career path is never a direct line. It takes a right and a left, and then it circles around and comes back. And it's been a while since I've gotten my PhD, and I have taken a lot of different roads. So where I am now was not a direct route from, CMA, UT Austin to Indeed. There were a lot of tricks and turns before I got to where I am now. I would say that one thing that has always helped me is I've listened to myself, and I've followed my passion and tried to find places where my skill set and who I am is something that is valued in the organization where I am. And so as schmaltzy as it might sound, I just always really followed my passion. So how I landed where I am right now. One of the things that I did, and I don't recommend it for everyone, but it worked for me. I went back to school, and after getting a PhD, there was a piece that was missing, and that was I'd fallen in love with cultural anthropology. I'd learned about cultural anthropology when I was working at an ad agency, and I went back to school for two reasons. One, to learn the theory, and two, to build community. So I went back to school at University of North Texas and got a master's in applied anthropology. And the applied is very important because they really celebrated and encouraged us to appreciate the benefit and the contribution we could make as applied researchers. And it was there that I realized that there is value of being a researcher in the applied world. And I haven't given up thinking of myself as a theoretician or as a scholar. I see myself, sometimes I'm a practicing scholar, other times I see myself as a scholarly practitioner. Whatever it is, I'm always thinking about theory, and I'm still contributing to a body of knowledge, but it's about the experience of practice as a researcher. How I would recommend PhDs interesting in making a similar move. It's really important that you offer examples of how you have been able to make a contribution to an organization. So whether that's an internship or prior work experience or doing pro bono, it's really important that you have stories to tell about how you made a difference in your organization. I have been on committees that have evaluated candidates. Interestingly enough, both candidates were UT PhD candidates. They were at the very end of their program, and they were applying for a research position within the organization. And what was fascinating was to hear their presentation and then to be in a committee that was evaluating their work. Both candidates were strong researchers. They absolutely had the hard skills. But what distinguished them was that the candidate who ultimately got the job was able to communicate the research in a way that non-researchers would understand, so they knew their audience. And number two, they could speak specifically, the candidate who got the job could speak how his research made a difference for their client. So they had experience, whereas the other candidate, their work had was more profound and more kind of moved an area of theory forward, but they didn't have the experience of working with a client. So they couldn't speak to the challenges of what happens when your client wants for example, the scope, they want a larger scope, but you have agreed to a smaller scope. How do you negotiate that? How do you negotiate time and how quickly, a client maybe wants it sooner or faster? How do you negotiate findings? How do you sell your findings in to people who are not really happy and don't really want to change? All of these things that are really about the socialization of research rather than the actual research. That ability to socialize research, that inevitably is what this candidate was able to demonstrate to us. So I've had the good fortune of having really great mentors. My dissertation advisor, my reader, and I think that they understood that there are many ways to make a contribution as a researcher, many ways. Certainly advancing theory is one way, certainly teaching students is one way, but there are other ways that you can be a successful researcher and make a contribution and make a difference. So celebrating that and honoring that and in a way giving me the power and the agency to follow my own voice those were the ones that sort of had, my mentors were the ones that sort of thought, kind of knew me and knew where I might be able to excel and what works for me. So I guess just sort of going where your passion leads you, and know that the money will come if you just love your work. And I love my work. I love applying what I do, cultural anthropology, thinking about users and social context and how meaning is created. That's pretty great. And I would have been doing that in academia, but now I'm doing it in applied world. And it's kind of exciting. It is so exciting to see that potentially my work could change how Indeed does their business. How profound is that? That's pretty great. So, I'm thankful for that. And that said, I do miss teaching, and I do miss the community of scholars. So I think it's important to always keep all of your connections open and build that community back and forth between academia and industry, between professionals and academics, because it's just a really nice relationship between the two.